What if everything you believe about needing $1 million to retire is wrong? That's right. What if $500,000 in the bank could actually set you free years earlier than you ever thought possible? Most people laugh at that number. They say, that's not enough to retire on, and then go back to work. But here's the twist. Every year you wait, this goal gets harder, and you could be missing out on $100,000 or more in lost compounding growth. According to S&P 500 historical averages and the findings from the Trinity study, the path to early freedom might be much closer than you think if you play your cards right. In the next few minutes, I'll break down how $500,000 invested and working for you translates to real, spendable income, the 5 steps that make it possible, and some real-life trade-offs you absolutely have to see before you pull the trigger. Stick around, because by the end, you'll know if this approach is crazy or the shortcut to escaping the 9-to-5 grind. Oh, and quick disclaimer, this is for educational purposes only. Market returns and safe withdrawal rates are never guaranteed, so always consult a qualified financial professional about your personal situation. Let's get straight into it. You can achieve financial flexibility, not extreme luxury, but true agency over your time, on much less than everyone says. In fact, with $500,000 invested the right way, you could step off the treadmill and start living life on your terms sooner than you think. But it all depends on the principles you use, the risks you're willing to take, and the type of lifestyle you actually want. I'm Mark from Mark Invests, and today I'll show you the 5 essential steps that will tell you if living on $500,000 is a recipe for freedom or for disaster. Step 1. Understanding the baseline. What does $500,000 really mean? First, let's decode the statement, you can live on $500,000 in the bank and do nothing else to make money. If you heard this from someone like Kevin O'Leary, and Kevin is a well-respected, data-driven investor, you might be skeptical. But he's not claiming you should let that cash sit in a checking account at 0.5% interest. The critical distinction here is invested cash versus dead money. If you leave $500,000 to stagnate in a regular bank account, you're effectively letting inflation erode your purchasing power. In fact, at an average 3% inflation rate, $500,000 loses about $15,000 in real value every single year. After a decade, you'd have about $370,000 in today's dollars. Your money is shrinking as prices rise. But if you invest those funds in a diversified portfolio, say a mix of broad market index funds like the S&P 500 and bonds, you're moving from decline to growth. Historically, the S&P 500 has clocked in at around 10% annual returns before inflation. Source: S&P Global. Add a blend of bonds to reduce volatility, and you're potentially looking at annualized returns of 5 to 8.5%, depending on how aggressive you want to be. This isn't a fantasy. Study after study, including the Trinity study, a gold standard for retirement research, show that with disciplined investing, your nest egg can reliably generate annual income if your withdrawals are reasonable. Now, here's your first progress check. Quick question. Do you think $500,000 could ever be enough for someone to live on year after year? Type YES or NO in the comments. I want to see how our community thinks. Step 2. Decoding the safe withdrawal rate. How much can you safely spend? This is where so many people get tripped up. Financial advisors talk about something called the safe withdrawal rate, or SWR. The Trinity study, cited everywhere from Fidelity to Vanguard, suggests a 4% withdrawal rate from a well-diversified portfolio historically survived 30 years or more, even during market downturns. That means on $500,000, you could withdraw $20,000 a year, adjusted for inflation, and have strong odds of your money lasting 3 decades. Some, like Kevin O'Leary, say 5% can also be reasonable, depending on market conditions and personal flexibility. That's $25,000 per year. The difference between these two rates over 20 years? An extra $100,000 of spending, but also a higher risk of running out if the markets misbehave. Here's the simple math. 4% of $500,000 is $20,000 per year. 5% of $500,000 is $25,000 per year. If you'd rather be conservative, stick with 4%. If you're willing to take a little more risk, perhaps because you plan to work part-time or flex spending in rough years, 5% is a stretch goal. But here's the curiosity loop. But can anyone actually live on $20,000, $25,000 a year, even with creative budgeting? Wait until you see how the numbers break down in a real lifestyle scenario. That's next. Plus, I'll show you what most people get wrong about cutting spending. Step 3. The minimalist reality. Could you live on $25,000 a year? Here's where the trade-offs get real. $25,000 a year equals about $2,083 a month before taxes. Although with this level of income, you may pay minimal to no federal tax depending on your state and deductions. Here's a typical scenario. Let's say you're single, living in a mid-cost city with either a paid-off home or renting with a roommate to minimize rent. For example, if your share of rent is $750 on a $1,500 apartment, that leaves you about $1,333 per month for everything else: utilities, food, transportation, health insurance, phone, entertainment, and the occasional treat. Cut out an $800 monthly car payment. Drive a used, paid-off car, or walk, bike, take public transport, and it becomes doable. Eat most meals at home. Avoid expensive hobbies. Embrace the simple joys. Yes, it's bare bones, but for plenty of people, the simplicity is freeing. Minimalism isn't deprivation. For some, it's a conscious escape from the endless cycle of buying more. But let's be honest. And here's where you need to comment your answer. If you had to cut your cost of living in half, what's the one expense you'd never give up? Drop it in the comments. Let's see what sacrifices are deal breakers. Still, this level works far better for singles than for families. If you have dependent, $25,000 goes fast. And even for the minimalist, an unexpected medical bill, rent increase, or surprise expense could make things tight. That's why this approach is only for those willing to prioritize flexibility and vigilance. Pattern break. Instead of more theory, here's a real example. Meet Sam. Sam retired at 39 on a portfolio just under $480,000. He lives in a small southern town, rents out a room in his modest home on Airbnb, drives a paid-off Prius, spends $200 a month on groceries, and rarely dines out. Sam's total annual spending, around $22,000. He spends his days volunteering, working part-time on a passion project, and kayaking with friends. Here's what he says. The hardest part wasn't saving. It was learning to be happy, needing less. My biggest worry? Healthcare. But the trade-off has been worth it for me. And like Sam, you'll probably miss social pressure more than actual stuff. Looping forward. But what about inflation, rising living costs, and worst-case scenarios? And is this even possible for the average worker? Step 4 delivers the answer, including a preview of how Social Security and side hustles change the math completely. Step 4, building the nest egg. How do you actually reach $500,000? Great news, even on an average salary. Getting to $500,000 is a lot more possible than you think. Let's crunch the numbers together. Let's suppose you start from zero and contribute $7,000 per year to a Roth IRA. That's the 2024 annual limit for those under 50, assuming a 7% average annual return. After inflation, which is conservative based on historical S&P 500, and stock bond blend. Data? Here's what happens. After 30 years, $7,000 per year for 30 years, compounding at 7%, grows to about $664,000. That's not assuming any big raises or side hustle boosts. Just a steady, moderate contribution. Push it to 40 years. A typical career, and you get to $1,440,000. Formula FV equals PMT times, open parenthesis, 1 plus R to the power of n minus 1, divided by R, close parenthesis. FV is future value. PMT is annual payment. R is annual interest rate as a decimal. N is number of years. So, by socking away about 10% of a median household income, $7,000 per year is just under 10% of the U.S. median. You hit the milestone with a simple index fund. Strategy. No trading, no get-rich-quick schemes, just consistency and the magic of compounding. And to illustrate the opportunity cost, if you delay investing by just 5 years, you could miss out on over $100,000 in growth. Want to map your own savings plan? I've built a simple spreadsheet calculator that lets you see exactly how fast you can reach your number based on your own salary, savings rate, and investment growth. If you want that spreadsheet, comment spreadsheet, and I'll reply with the link. Seriously, it's the single most motivating tool for visualizing your path to financial independence. Drop a money bag emoji below if you're surprised at how much impact a small, steady habit makes over decades. But here's the curiosity hook. What if $500,000 isn't enough for your desired lifestyle? How much does it really take to feel comfortable, not just survive? The answer is coming in step 5, and you might be shocked at how much Social Security can boost your numbers, especially in retirement. Step 5, scaling up. What happens at $1.5 million and beyond? Here's where the game changes. While $500,000 buys you freedom with frugality, $1.5 million invested at the same 5% withdrawal rate generates $75,000 a year without eating away at your principal in most historical scenarios. That's enough for a couple to live comfortably. In many parts of the U.S., even before adding any other income streams, $1,500,000 at 5% equals $75,000 per year. Bump that up with average Social Security benefits for a retired couple, about $48,000 per year. In 2024 SSA data, and you're looking at a total spendable budget of $123,000 per year. That's a dramatic difference in lifestyle, flexibility, and peace of mind. Vacations, hobbies, and even the ability to help out family, travel, or weather unexpected expenses without tensing up every time the credit card bill comes due. But if you're a minimalist at heart who just wants to escape the grind, retired on $500,000 plus, Social Security or small income from a passion project, part-time work, or side hustle, here's how it can really look. With Social Security, a $500,000 portfolio at 5%. $25,000 per year, plus benefits for a couple, $48,000 per year, sums to $73,000 a year. That's nearly 3 times the budget you'd have on investments alone. For most people, the sweet spot for comfort and security, without having to count every dollar, is somewhere above $1 million. But if your heart isn't set on luxury, remember, every $1,000 a year less you need reduces your retirement target by $25,000. Recap. It's not what you earn, it's what you keep and how little you need to be free. The less you spend, the less you actually need to invest to reach financial independence. Here's your final pattern break. The biggest regret I hear from early retirees isn't the sacrifices. It's waiting too long to start, missing out on compound growth that could have made everything easier. Don't put it off another year. Curiosity loop. What about healthcare and unexpected costs? That's the number one worry I hear from our face. Community. In next video, I'm breaking down affordable healthcare options for early retirees and minimalist expats. Subscribe now so you don't miss it. Before closing, a critical final risk note. No strategy is bulletproof. Markets don't always deliver average returns, and past performance doesn't guarantee future results. A sustained bear market, unexpected big expense, or longer than expected retirement can stress test any plan. That's why you must regularly revisit your game portfolio, flex your withdrawal rate in down years, and always consult a licensed expert before making any major financial moves. To summarize, living on $500,000 is absolutely possible, especially if you embrace minimalism and prioritize freedom over lifestyle inflation. But the margin for error is thin, and it's not for everyone. Scaling up to $1.5 million delivers not just survival, but comfort, confidence, and the freedom to enjoy life's pleasures on your terms. Take these numbers, run them through your own scenario, and set a target that matches your life, not someone else's Instagram highlight reel. So, let's recap. You've now seen the 5 essential steps to living off $500,000. Why the difference between invested capital and cash is everything. How the safe withdrawal rate creates a reasonable budget. And what strategies and sacrifices actually make this achievable. If you're aiming for basic freedom as soon as possible, the minimalist approach with $500,000 invested can absolutely work, especially for singles and those ready to downshift their lifestyle for long-term comfort, or if you want to build in margin for family, healthcare, or luxury. A more realistic target is $1.5 million or above, where the numbers allow for flexibility and peace of mind. Here's exactly what to do right now. 1. Calculate your annual living expenses. What's your real burn rate? 2. Plug your numbers into my free retirement spreadsheet. Comment spreadsheet if you want it, and set a target that fits your lifestyle and going. Risk tolerance. 3. Commit to a baseline monthly investment. Automate $500, $700, or whatever fits, and track your progress with quarterly check-ins. 4. Revisit your plan and rebalance your portfolio every 6 to 12 months as markets and goals evolve. 5. Educate yourself. Watch my next video for strategies on healthcare for early retirees and minimalist expats, because missing this is often the number one regret. With discipline, you'll start seeing progress within the first 90 days as your net worth curve bends upward. It won't always feel fast, but over the months and years, compound growth will do the heavy lifting. For most, the biggest results. The freedom to choose your own work, slow life down, or even semi-retire. Start showing up as soon as your investments cover a large share of your basics, usually within 5 to 12 years, depending on your starting point and savings rate. Remember, the earlier you begin, the bigger your rewards later. Waiting just 5 years can cost you $100,000 or more in lost compound growth. Source: S&P 500 returns historical average Fidelity compounding study. If you found this analysis eye-opening, please share this with a friend who's always said $1 million is the only way out. Subscribe to Mark Invests and turn on notifications. Next up, I'm breaking down the best side hustles that let you accelerate your journey, minimizing risk, plus insider tips for stretching your dollar as well. A minimalist. What's your number one money worry about? Retirement or financial independence? Drop it in the comments. Let's help each other out. And again, if you want the free spreadsheet to map your own plan, just comment spreadsheet and I'll send you the link. One last note, this is not financial advice. This is for your education and general awareness. Market returns and safe withdrawal rates can change, and your personal circumstances are unique. Always consult a qualified financial advisor before making major investment decisions. Thanks for being a part of the Mark Invests community. See you in the next video.